This meeting of the Ware County Board of Elections and Registration will now come to order. This time we'll ask Mr. Andy Preston to lead us in the invocation, and I'll lead in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the opportunity to serve. And Lord, I just pray that as we go through the meeting that you will be there with us and help us to make decisions. And Lord, I just pray for our country, our state, and our local community. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Supervisor, please call roll call.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Andy Preston. Here. Vernon Chambliss.
Here.
Marion Solomon Gaines.
Here.
Ludine Whitfield.
Here.
Danny Bartlett.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. You have the agenda in front of you. Let's see. Public hearing. Is there any changes that need to be made to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we're going to need to reschedule the appeal qualification hearing. That was
Yes,
scheduled for 11 o'clock today. We need to reschedule that. So if we can add that up on the next meetings, and then y'all can just discuss and see what time and date y'all are available, so we can reschedule that.
any objection? Without objection. Anything else?
That'll be it on the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
So the agenda as amended with the public hearing under number 13. Is there any objection? No objection? So done. All right, so any public comments?
I don't think we have anyone signed up for public comment, Mr. Chairman.
10-4. We have the minutes in front of you from our last meeting. Let's see. I have briefly went over them. I didn't find any grammatical errors, not meaning that there's not any, but I didn't spot any. So does anybody have any changes, not changes, any corrections to the minutes?
No.
Seeing none, let's accept them without objection. So done. Public hearing postponed, unfinished business none, new business. Anybody have any new business? Seeing none. Mr. Supervisor, give us an update on the May 19th general primary election.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As you know, May 19th is the general primary election. Early voting will start April 27th, and it will go for 3 weeks. We have the 2 Saturday voting. We have these out in the communities and on our webpage. The first thing I want to just mention is we're still struggling with poll workers, and it's getting worse. So we will be. We short men, some people to help with the equipment. That's one of the biggest issues right now. Setting up, taking down an election. So we're making a push to try to find some guys, and I say men because it's heavy lifting, and we're just trying to find some guys that can help within the next week. If we don't have any in a way forward, we're going to be short. We're not going to be short to the point where it's going to kill us. It's just going to be a lot of work for the few that we have. I'm going to get with the county manager to see maybe Public Works or someone can help us at least not set up, but just help with the transporting and taking them off the trucks and things like that, and use our poll workers to actual set up and things like that. So that's the biggest issue right now we're having.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Before we leave the update on the May 19th primary, I want to, early voting starts at 27.
Yeah, 27, yes.
Okay, now, and maybe I'm skipping a little bit ahead, but so that means that the updated public hearing needs to be soon.
Yes.
Yeah,
April
we're
27th.
We're gonna discuss that.
We're gonna discuss that down
Yes,
there? Okay,
most
good.
definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's
No
fine.
problem.
Other than that, we did LNA testing last week with the equipment. Yeah, we have all of the equipment tested and secured, locked up, and ready to go for early voting and election day. So we're good on that. And other than that, we just waiting for the 27th to start, and we expect a big turnout. We just encouraging people, if you don't, if you can't get out and vote in person or on election day, call the office. We'll send you an application for an absentee ballot, and so we can get them in the mail. Absentee ballots will go out starting next Monday, the 20th, and the deadline for receiving is, I want to say, it's the 8th of May. We have to receive the application for absentee ballots by the 8th of May. Okay. And that's all I have on the update on the general primary election. Any questions?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you say we have to receive the ballot by May the 8th? It
Not the
said
ballot, the
we have to-
application.
We have to
Application.
request request the absentee ballot by May the 8th.
Yes, that's
Have to
correct.
request it, not receive.
Have to request it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for the supervisor?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we're going to give an update on the legislative session and election bills. As you know, the last day of the session was crazy in Atlanta. The legislature attached most of the election items on Senate Bill 214. On the last day, the House passed it, sent it back to the Senate. The Senate did not act on it. So right now, election offices around Georgia's in limbo. We're trying to figure out what's going to happen in November.
That's the exact word I was writing when he said.
Some of the members of the House was trying to encourage the governor to call a special session. Not sure if that's what the Senate wants. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So if nothing changes, and the July 1st, no QR code is implemented, that means that November, I've already sent the budget information to the county. We're going to allocate about an extra $20,000 for absentee ballots, for paper ballots for that election, where we normally would spend about $2,000 on ballots. Because everyone, we need to have a ballot for every registered voter in Ware County, because we don't know whether it's going to be 70% turnout or 30% turnout. But you got to have a ballot for everyone. So that's going to be an issue. Plus, with our shortage, and I already mentioned the shortage of poll workers. The logistics of working with absentee ballots, where the ballots will be at the precinct, twofold. Okay. Whenever someone comes in and go through the process with the poll pad, and we assign them their ballot, and now we have to have a poll worker that's going to be not one, a couple of poll workers that would be overseeing the ballots, because the ballots got to be secured at all times. So we have to have someone over there. Then we're going to have someone to log out the ballot for that voter. So it's not like having just a floater around. You're still gonna have to have a floater. You're still gonna have to have a greeter. You're still gonna have to have a scanning person. You're still gonna have the managers and assistants. Now we're gonna have extra people, because now we got to have someone to sign out the ballots, to make sure the ballots are, the chain of custody is maintained on the ballots. And then after the ballots are done, then they go over to the scanner. They'll scan them into the system. That's gonna be additional folks. So we're looking at that as a contingency, how we're going to keep the ballot secure. For example, the auditorium has about 6,300 voters, so that means that we're going to have laid out of about 6,300 ballots where they were, on hand at that precinct, ready for election day. So that's going to be, large precincts is going to be crazy. Small precincts like Wellsboro and Emerson Park and places like that that's already lacking the space. You know, they may only have 700-800 voters, maybe 1,000 voters, but that's 1,000 ballots that's going to have to be sorted, laid out, and we're still going to have the same amount of people that's going to have to secure the ballots and do chain of custody. So, you know, when we say just paper ballots is easy, it's not as easy as it sounds. It's going to be a lot of logistical concerns. I know in Ware County it will be. So, so I'm hoping that somehow the legislature, through the governor, can come up with something. You know, we thought in Senate Bill 214, they were going to delay it a year and put the money in the budget to look at new equipment. Election officers, election supervisors around the state, you know, we're in support of the ballot on demand printers. That's not the greatest in the world, but that's a good alternative where everyone will have a ballot. You know, even then that's a concern because we're going to have more space. I'm going to use the early voting site for an example. We don't have to worry about setting up equipment like that. You know, that's going to be easy. Okay, table, chairs, privacy screens. People can go in and vote. You know, just put their ballot on the table and vote. Now we're gonna have a lot of senior citizens, a lot of older folks, a lot of people like myself that's half blind. Now we're going to be trying to read instead of seeing big print on the screen. Now we're going to be looking at little print on the ballot, and people are going to take their time. You know, we're not going to rush them. They need to take their time. So even if in here we have 15 seats available for people to sit, we can't give another voter a ballot until a seat becomes available. And so they're going to take their time. It's not like sitting at home where you can, you know, put it down, come back 30 minutes later and say, I'm going to finish up my ballot. You know, it's going to be a one-time thing. And if you make a mistake, then we got to go start the process all back over again. That's not the best in the world, you know, but ballot on demand, if you're not going to use the QR code, that's what we suggest, you know, that way they can get it, at least they'll get the ballot. We have to work out that part of the logistics later as far as how we get people in and out a little bit quicker. Because even in our building, we may have 10 or 12 seats for people to vote, but we may have 20 people in line waiting, and there's no way of rushing them people in if there's no seats available. And we will not ask a voter to rush. You know, we want them to take their time, make sure, you know, their choices are accurately reflected on their ballot. So if it sounds like we're confused, we are. Election officers around Georgia is confused. We don't know what to do. Personally, I'm just hoping that we're not set up for failure in November. You know, with lawsuits saying you should have done this, you should have done that. You know, the Monday morning quarterbacking of elections will happen in November, without a doubt. You know, that's just my personal opinion. But that's where we are on the legislation. Of all the talk that was had before the legislative session, pretty much absolutely nothing was done in this session dealing with elections. You know, and that's kind of disappointing. They tried, you know, through whatever reasons, nothing happened.
Have you heard any scuttlebutt about the state election board meeting today?
I know they're meeting.
You heard their meeting?
I don't know what's on I know they're hearing some cases, and I'm not sure, you know, what's the outcome. What other items they have on the agenda for business. I know they're hearing some cases. You know, have you heard anything?
Not specifically.
I thought you were trying to lead me into it.
But I do have a question in my mind. If the Georgia General Assembly passes a law and the lawmakers break that law, what recourse do we as citizens have? They passed the law 2 years ago to remove that QR code. They did not do it. July 1st is fast approaching. What happens if it hasn't been removed by July 1st?
That's a
I
good
think
question.
that's what's put us in the biggest conundrum.
Oh, yes, sir. That's exactly. Because you can't kick that can no further down the road than July 1st.
Exactly.
Unless something happens. Unless we'll be in the courts. Like the whole thing will be in the courts again. You know. And so I'm glad it's after the May and June elections, you know, but still, whatever system that they come up with or they ask us to do in November, it's going to be a lot of training with poll workers because it's going to be a totally different system is what they're used to doing. And so, and that's what scares them about the lawsuits and things, because you're going to have people that's used to doing certain things, and all of a sudden say, no, forget about everything else. Now we got to rush and teach you another way of doing it that we're still up in the air about, you know. So now you're going to, I hate to say it this way, now you're going to have 159 counties doing 159 different things on election day, and that's where you're going to have a lot of the problems.
And as far as hand-marked, hand-counted ballots at the precinct, I hear that, and I don't think people understand exactly what that means. Counting a ballot just means counting. How many ballots do we have turned in? Tabulating is when you determine who's got the most votes. I do not think that the people who are doing paper ballots, please, I don't think they're saying tabulate at the precinct. They're saying count. Do we not already count our ballots before the managers close down everything?
Well, we use the tabulator to determine, if you recall what we do on election night, okay, the precincts call the office right at the time they close, and the last voter votes, and they say, okay, Emerson Park got 175 voters. Everybody calls in, and when we get the cards from the machine and upload them into the system, the first thing I tell y'all is that, okay, Emerson Park had 175 voters. Boom, do we have 175 images on the ICC in the Jim's room? That's the way we reconcile to say, okay, what they reported is exactly what's on this card. We don't know how many votes for each candidate, but we know how many ballots were cast. And then when we get, and then the equipment teams, they pick everything up that night or first thing that morning. And then before Friday, we go back and we open up every one of the ballot boxes and we count every ballot. And they, you know, if it's 175 for Emerson Park, that's what it's going to be in that ballot box. And we do that. Now, other counties may do things a little bit differently, but that's how we do it here in Ware County. But we all have our own way of reconciling.
And it's been double checked and triple checked by the time we go through all of those.
Yes.
I think that would satisfy the paper ballots, please.
Now, no QR code issue. I'm going to go a little bit more into the weeds, if you don't mind. The ADA, okay, says that we have to have at least the ADA, which is the ATI machine, available for people that can't see or need assistance. They will still have one machine. That machine will still print out the QR code ballot the way it is currently. I'm sorry, I didn't turn my phone up. You know, and it will still print off the ballot that we have here. With the July 1 deadline, we will not be able to use those. We would not be able to put the BMD ballot into the tabulator to tabulate the votes. Okay. So what happens now in November is that whenever a person votes on the ATI machine, says, hey, you know, I don't want to do a paper ballot because I can't see that little print and it take me too long. I want to use the ATI, that's fine. Instead of them scanning it, they will have to put it in an emergency bin in the back. Okay, and we'll log it in. Okay. So I'm going to use Emerson Park since I've used it before. So if Emerson Park say if we got 25 ballots in the emergency bin, they bring their ballots back that night to the office. Okay, we'll verify chain of custody, 25 ballots were received because they'll be secured. Then we have to have a ballot duplication team there. Normally it's one Democrat, one Republican, and normally one board member. Okay, if we have 5 teams, it'll be 5 board members and 1 Republican, 1 Democrat. And what they would do is they'll take that BMD ballot and call it out and go down the regular paper ballot that we'll pull off the shelf and mark it. Okay, and then all 3 of them look it over and make sure that it is marked exactly the same way they voted on their BMD ballot. And then once we do all that, then we'll take them ballots and then we'll scan them into the system. Wow. On election night. I'm going to let that sink in a little bit. Because there's still a law out there that says by 11:59 we're going to report all of our numbers. So between 7:30 when the precincts start coming in and 11:59, we have to duplicate the ballots, and from the ATI machine. Because anyone could go in and say, I don't want to, I need to use ATI because I don't want to vote paper ballot. So we had 100 ballots. We're going to have to duplicate 100 paper ballots and then go back in there and scan them per precinct. Is that sinking in? The time-wise?
Oh,
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of time.
and we're a small county.
And we're a small county. And we're going to have some precincts, like I say, some people, it is an issue. Because my mom, before she passed, she would always get an absentee ballot. That ballot will sit there for a couple of weeks and she'll do a little bit here and then she'll go back later and do a little bit more and eyes get tired and, whatever. Or magnifying glass and, different things like that. So a lot of people were going to come in and say, hey, I want to use the ATI because I can't do the paper ballot. That's fine, But the more you have, the more ballots you have like that, it's going to be more duplication teams, and then, if it's more than 5, or if one of y'all can't make it, then we'll go ahead and swear somebody else in to be the third party, nonpartisan, person to make sure that ballot is correct. Make sure Ms. Marion's ballot is exactly the way she voted on the BMD is going to be on the paper ballot. And then you sign off on that. You put duplicate on one, the original on the second one, blah, 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 and then that's what we have to scan. There's a lot of logistics that the election officers around Georgia is really trying to, at the beginning of trying to wrap our brains around what's going to happen in November. And no one knows yet. So we've been thinking about this along the way. I just want to make sure we have a drama-free election. And I don't think that's going to happen in November because, like I say, instead of it being one universal way that we do things in Georgia, it's going to be pretty much 159 different ways of doing it. And then that's going to open up the lawsuits to saying, well, why aren't y'all doing it the way, Pierce County's doing it or Macon doing it, this and that, I like the way they doing it, why aren't y'all doing it that way, and that's where the state election board, legislature, they're going to have to come up with policies with the quickness to try to say, hey, let's try to get more universal about on how we're going to do things like that. And I don't think no one has a way forward right now. That is my report on the legislation. Any questions?
Any questions? Had enough
Okay.
of that. FY 27 budget.
FY 27 budget, I've already told you a little bit. I've already notified Ms. Beverly, asking her to put in contingency about the $20,000 for paper ballots. I'm not asking for it to be in our budget totals in a sense, but just have it in contingencies, to say, hey, if it goes this direction, we know the county's going to have money set aside for the election. We know they're going to have money set aside for the election because no matter what, the election is going to happen. Let's be real, but I just don't want it to be an impact on the taxpayers. it will be, but I want it to be known up front. Hey, this is going to be, we're going to put this money to the side as part of elections. They're not going to spend it on anything else, no equipment, no nothing, only if we have to go paper ballots. And so that's the main thing we're going to add to the budget this year. Other than that, postage is up because, over the past couple of years, postage has really skyrocketed because the state's done a better job in doing the list maintenance and getting us the names of the voters that need to drop off or had address changes to the post office, things like that. And so, you know what I said before, anytime we make a change on someone's thing because of a change of address, they're going to get at least one letter in the mail. And so when we make a couple hundred changes that month, it's a couple hundred envelopes going out. So in the past, where we were spending about $2,000 for postage, I think we're fast approaching about 5,000 so far this year on postage. And it's the nature of doing business, especially trying to manage the list maintenance and getting, make sure our voting rolls are accurate. So that's the biggest thing on the 27 budget. Other than that, we're not really requesting anything additional. They did say there was a 28% increase in health care for the employees, so that's gonna impact our budget, but that's on the finance side, that's not on our budget end. Any questions on the FY 27 budget?
Do you send out letters or you send out postcards?
We send letters out.
Is there any way you can do a postcard where you fold it over and keep it, secure?
That's the part about it, I don't know how to do it. Well,
You're saying just save money.
yeah, it would. I don't know how we can do that. I don't, because we'd have to print the information, because there's certain information that we have to include on the letter, within law, statute saying we have to include. And so I don't know. I know some things like the state sends out the precinct cards. They do that on postcards now to save money. But that would be a thought. You can look into that. As long as make sure we have the correct information, that we have to have in that letter on that postcard the same way to make sure it's legal.
Is your financial summary, did you just discuss that with the FY 27 budget?
That was the
Both
27
of them?
budget.
Is both of them there?
Yeah, but the other one you have a list of the latest financials.
Right.
And we still within budget.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions on the financial summary? That was for February?
Yeah, the latest one we have is for March.
Yeah,
Financial summary.
March.
We had 63% of our 75% of our budget year, and we've so far we spent 63% of our budget, which that's going to increase some now because we have the May election. We'll spend about $20,000 on poll workers for that election, and probably another $15,000 for June to wrap out this budget year.
Question on that. So basically, we can look for this number to increase dramatically with the primary election and the runoff.
Yes, sir. That's expected.
But it shows that we are well within that.
Yeah, I'll be concerned if we was at 75% of our budget and of our money spent, and then knowing that we had May and June coming forward, but we're 12% less than what of our budget year, and so that's basically what we're expecting, where we need to be.
Ms. Marion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have to keep going back to the poll workers. And needing, people to help set up equipment. How long does it take to clear those people? So in other words, if I find somebody and tell them to come down to the office today, how long would it take to clear them to work the polls? Or even do it, just the equipment even?
Well, sometimes it depends on, their effort, but normally about a week, because they have to come up here, they have to go through the drug screening, turn in their social security card, do all the I-9 information, and then once they, that comes back, the drug screening comes back, and the background check, then they're clear. So normally about a week if they go ahead and go through the process and get it done. the hardest part is sometimes some people, I'll go next week, and then when HR calls them, they don't come right away. They take a few more days to come up and all that good stuff. But normally about a week to 10 days, we can get them cleared.
That include, blood, the blood screening, results and everything to come back.
That's the drug screening and the, background check.
Yeah, the background didn't really take that long.
Now, background doesn't take long at all.
Okay. About a week to 10 days, okay.
Anything else, Mr. Supervisor?
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, number 12, superintendent's report and last call. A lot of people don't understand the definition of those two terms, supervisor and superintendent. Mr. Nelson is the supervisor of elections. This board is the superintendent of elections. So we're now down to superintendent's report. Ms. Ludine, do you have anything?
I just want to thank everybody for coming, and I thank God for another day.
Amen. Mr. Vernon?
Same here.
Same here. Mr. Andy?
Same thing.
Ms. Marion?
Hello, everybody. Now, I just want to caution everyone about, the public rather, about burning. We're in a very, very dry spell. And you must get a permit before you burn anything. And right now, the fire chiefs in the county and the city, are saying no to that. So make sure that we have, that we follow the law when it comes to that. We don't want another fire in Ware County. And I want to ask everyone to have a nice day. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet. All right, our next meeting is scheduled for May 12th, 2026. And of course, May 19th is Election Day. And then May 22nd will be the certification meeting after the primary. Is everybody good with that?
Yes, sir.
All righty. All right, the final item on our agenda, that one that was added at the beginning about the public hearing that we were supposed to have today. Mr. Nelson, would you please explain what has happened?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Board, Commissioner Lucas called this morning and said that he was under the weather, stomach bug, and couldn't attend today's meeting. And so he had asked if we can reschedule Thursday or either Friday at the latest, because next week I think they're going to ACCG conference, either Tuesday or all next week. And personally, I think it needs to be done this week so we can, know which direction before we start early voting of the board's decision. So it's up to you with your date and time. Y'all can talk about it now. It should not be a long meeting. At the most, it should be about an hour because it's really not a whole bunch of testimony, just hearing the information that he may have and the documentation, all that good stuff, and for y'all to deliberate. So I know we have Exchange Club on Thursdays at lunch. It could be before or after, or Friday.
So we're looking at this week, the 16th.
Well, what's your pleasure, board?
About 10 o'clock on Thursday.
Say again,
10
Vernon?
o'clock on Thursday, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock on Thursday has been suggested.
I'm good with that.
Is everybody good with that?
I'm good with it.
Before we make that decision, let's, I've got some questions that I would like, maybe not discussed, but at least clarified enough. We have early voting begins on April 27th. Our ballots have already been printed for that. If there's a change in that, there's going to need to be a system to get that done before April 27th. We're looking right now, today is the 14th. That leaves 13 days. And you're going to need that information before the first day of early voting.
Mr. Chairman, on that, if it is the decision of this board to make a change, disqualification, for example, we don't have to do a new ballot. We just have to post everything, and we have to put in the absentee ballot envelopes for that district. Letting people know that if they vote for a particular candidate, that would not count. So we have to make sure we do a proper notification in the paper and at every precinct on election day. So it's too late to do ballots all over again.
Yes.
Yes.
So what about the envelope you were talking about?
That is the absentee ballot envelope. When the absentee ballots go out on the 20th, that's why I was thinking if this week would be great, because that way everyone in District 3 would get their ballot, plus they'll get a little slip of paper saying, hey, the board's decision has been, to disqualify a candidate. That's if this board decides to go in that direction. If nothing changes, that's fine. But if it changes, we have to make sure we put in their ballots that if they do vote for that particular candidate, their vote would not count.
Another question would be, what would be our recourse if the commissioner does not show up Thursday?
That's a good question. Mr. Attorney, I'm not an attorney. I didn't sleep in Holiday Inn Express last night. But I would say this, and if you want to add anything to it, I will say this: with the board postponing it because of illness, I think that's shown a goodwill on the board to accommodate them, because we can't keep kicking this can down the road. So we're going to have to act on it. So I would suggest Mr. Vernon may have different thoughts on it, and I can ask our attorney. On whatever date and time y'all set, we need to go forward, and if it can't be live testimony, he needs to go ahead and provide what he can in writing, and let the board make a decision.
I need to make a decision on Thursday.
When would be the drop dead date if we did decide, if something else came up and he wanted another date? What would be the drop dead date?
Personally, I think it should be Friday, because I think we need to have it. We need to put things in the paper. I mean, in the paper, plus in their envelopes, in the absentee ballot envelopes that will be going out on Monday morning.
Okay.
So
Does anybody else have any questions, ma'am?
You said we need to do it
I
Friday.
said no. I said Friday is the drop dead date.
Yeah.
The drop
I
dead
think we need
date.
to have
I
it.
think Thursday's
Yeah.
fine.
Have a meeting by Friday. No ifs, ands, or buts.
All right. Can we have a motion to move the public hearing to Thursday at 10 a.m.?
So moved.
And can we get this room on Thursday?
I'm looking over here. Mr. Spencer's right there. The man's right there.
It should be fine, but we will check.
Yeah. Take this moment to thank Mr. Spencer Baxley for the work that he does
Yes,
for
sir.
us.
Yes, sir.
It's
Thank you.
very valuable. We want you to know we appreciate it.
No, you're good.
We're good for Thursday, 10 o'clock.
We didn't second that motion.
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry. Go
You
ahead.
think I'm gonna let that slide?
Okay, I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
I'm just picking on you.
That's okay, pick
All right,
one.
we have a motion from Mr. Shambliss. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Is there any objections? Seeing no objections, we'll pass it. So done. So we'll have our public hearing Thursday at 10 a.m. And if we have to postpone, Friday will be the final date that we can do it.
I would do the proper notices. I've already notified the paper that today's meeting has been postponed, and I told them I'd get back with them as soon as this meeting is over and give them the date. So if it can't get in this week's paper, it'll be on their website, it'll be on our website and the county's
What
website.
do you mean by this week's?
I mean tomorrow's paper, because I
It's
know they
already
go.
printed, so we're
I know I
we're
normally
looking
get
at
mine.
next Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn, having gone through our agenda. Without objection, so moved.
Thank you, board.